Ajay is actually a legend and a guru for a lot of us, right from an India days where he drove the retail banking franchise for India, and we all have learned so much from him. One of the best business managers and one of the best people managers I have seen in my career, and I'm still learning from him. And I let out a small secret here that it's not supposed to be officially out, but he is soon going to be, or he's already is, but not officially, maybe a doctor of innovation from Singapore University. So you can imagine, the kind of respect which Ajay uh, has among the banking fraternity across the emerging markets. Thank you very much, Ajay, for for accepting this invitation and being around. Uh, we've been talking since mid-afternoon about Africa, about digital banking, how the transformation is going to be accelerated. We've spoken about payments. But what comes to my mind, Ajay, is that you remember the days of Citibank when we used to talk about branding, we used to talk about customer service, we used to have customer excellence programs so that our relationship managers could, address the customers, could talk to the customers nicely. We used to figure out how do I do branding for Citigroup in the ATMs. But now with the digital thing happening, right, it's going to change the whole face of banking because it's going to be one simple application. Now that application could belong to Citibank, to Standard Chartered, to BNP Paribas, to KCB, right? So it's becoming like a commodity now. So what do you think? How is this commoditization of digital banking, or I would say commoditization of banking? How does one bank differentiate from the other? What are your views on this?
So, Abhinav, you are raising a question which has got multiple facets to look at. So let's say let's take the clock back uh, um, 20 years. In 2000, what was the world's number one brand? And so if we go back to say Interbrand, which is one of the world's most highly respected branding specialists.
Right.
So they would have said in 2000, the world's number one brand was Coke.
Right.
Right. So Coke was the world's number one brand. Interestingly, you would find that in 2000, there would be two financial services brands which were in the top 20, Citi and Amex. One, a full function bank, one, a financial services company. But at that time, there were some areas where they had some banking. Now, you cut 2010, which is the world's number one brand? Coke. Okay. What happens to banks, financial services companies? There is not one which is in the top 20. Right? Then, so Citi is there somewhere in the 30s, and there's Amex somewhere in the 40s, and they're all like there, but they are on their way down.
Right.
Cut to 2018, 19, whatever is the latest brand survey from Interbrand. Which is the world's number one brand now? Apple. Right? So Coke has moved from its top position to somewhere between 5 and 6. What has happened to the financial services brands? They are not in play. Right? So you are addressing the core question that what is happening to the whole industry per se, and why is it is happening, and then what do we do when you are going through this sort of a transformation per se over a 20-30 year period. So to look at this, I would say, what does a bank stand for? So historically, banks would stand for safety, trust, capital, borrowing, confidence, um, uh, security, security not just of the money, but security in terms of privacy. Whatever I talk, it's confidentiality. So such issues used to be related with with the banking industry. Today, with digitization, so first technology, and then the core tech wave, which is the manual to mainframe, mainframe to PC, PC to internet, internet to mobile, and mobile to not total digital. This whole spectrum of change which has happened has led to, in my view, complete commoditization of banking services.
Right.
So today, when you get electricity, now there are 5 bulbs in this room, right? I don't care who provides electricity to me,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You know, there is usually one water provider and 2 or 3 electricity providers in any urban center, and that's all that is there.
Right.
But we are multitude of banks, right? Somewhere 10, 20, 30, 40 to up to hundreds and to thousands and then tens of thousands in the US, but let's leave that for the moment.
Right.
But in most medium-sized countries, which is what Africa is there are always between 20 to 50, 60 banks, mostly operating in these markets. So how do you differentiate? Second, technology is the greatest leveler.
Right.
We can move plateaus, levels, not just 1 or 2 steps in a ladder, but we move straight up. It's like a lift. It
Yes.
takes me from core banking straight up to digital banking in terms of technology availability.
Right.
But what it does not do is it does not give me the capability to leverage it. So the key differentiator and the capability of institutions to differentiate is in your ability to visualize. How do you visualize yourself? Do you see yourself as a, a bank which is moving in a ladder of technology and happy to move up? Or do you want to reverse the whole thing and say, I am genuinely in a technology centered space? So, MasterCard changed its outlook 12 years ago when Ajay went and he said, Ajay Banga, when he went there and said that we are a technology company, right? We are not a payments company. We are a technology company. And all their thought process came from that. Similarly, there are other banks where we have seen such things happen. But sadly, most banks continue to look at themselves and say, oh, I used to provide mobile banking. Now I will provide mobile plus. I used to be on online platform on the laptop or on the computer. Oh, I will go towards mobile. These are features.
Right.
So the fundamental thinking has to change. And when we say digital and when we say digitization are 2 different things.
Right.
Digital is a methodology. Digitization is a thought process. So the brand and the business has to think of themselves as based on doing everything in a digital centric manner. So it does not mean that we are getting intrinsically thinking company as a bank because now we are thinking of technology and not outside, as we are not an extrinsic thinking company of the customer. No, you have to effectively, my most famous example when I do it in my classes on this is that this is the dance between the yin and the yang. So the customer and the technology are both dancing together,
Right.
right? So you have 2 cores. So when the two
Digital
black
centric.
holes have cores together, when the 2 black hole cores come together, the
Right.
power that is generated is of a vastly different magnitude.
Right.
And that's really the challenge here in this situation. How do we stay customer centric and how do we get the brand to be at the core of the technology thinking process.
Right.
That's the value that you have to message out to your customers. You listen to customers, you look at data, you do blockchain, you do artificial intelligence, but these are all building blocks. The central message of the brand has to be that banks have to say, we are no longer going to rely on traditional strengths of capital, of security, of confidence, of privacy. We have to rely on the capability of the modern world, that customer insights and technology are so closely tuned together that today we have to think of these things together. So, so to say that it is innovation, technology, disruption, all these things are not individual elements of a process or a business or an institution, because an institution alone also cannot do it. You need the whole ecosystem to be thinking on the same thing. So the greatest bank in Africa or the greatest bank in Kenya as a country or South Africa cannot do it by itself, until or unless the ecosystem is all going to do the same.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's the challenge in a commodity, that you are getting to a stage where everybody can provide it, yet you create the differentiation. And that's where your insights come in, your ability to create power of data. So people have said that, data was the new oil. You must have heard this famous stuff. There are people who say that data is the new air, right? This is what we believe. This is what we breathe now. So I'm saying data is not just the new oil. It is just not the new air. It is also the thought. Everything that you think relies on information now. So the oil is an engine for the economy. The air is the engine for a human being or a living being.
Right.
Thought is the engine of the soul. Right? So your thinking is linked to that. So when you talk in terms of a brand image, you have to say that brands which will think of this data, information, insights, these capabilities, they are not to be confused with blockchain. They are not to be confused with mobile banking. They are not to be confused with cloud computing. Those are tools. They will keep evolving.
Right.
But data and insights have to become the real differentiator. People will remain the differentiator, but that value of people will not come through direct interaction, but through the capability of your people to read the data and get better insights from data.
Right.
That will create the differentiating factor. So people will remain central, but no longer Ajay and Abhinav as the most loved RM is Abhinav. So Ajay as a customer is happy to engage, or the smartest RM is Abhinav, the greatest private banker is Abhinav, the smartest investment banker is Abhinav. No, that's no longer relevant in that sense. That skill can be bought, but that interaction is going to move away, less and less and less, and more direct between data, information, system, outcome.
Excellent.
That's what I would say. This is like a meandering of thought to a question, but I'm happy to carry the conversation.
Oh, this is beautifully put, Ajay, and in a very, very right perspective, where you're saying that the whole thing is going to move from person centric to more data centric, more at the back end, and then it's the vision and the insights which are going to play the more.
And the data. You have to stop, in my opinion. Pardon me for saying this. We have to stop thinking of data as front end or back end. Data is everywhere. So at the front end is where the customer is. Customer is generating the data that point. And that data is giving us the capability to generate the insights from that point onward. So I'll give you a small example. uh, 8 or 10 years ago at SAMBA, we generated the capability to give you a specific marketing offer when you walked into a particular mall. So you have walked into a mall based on your previous purchase patterns, right? In that mall for a particular brand. So if you have gone into the Kingdom Mall and bought a Patek Philippe for 40,000 euros and you go there after 3 months, right? There will be a message to you from the local Patek Philippe shop via Bluetooth or via our app to make a special offer or just say, welcome back. Would you like to drop in? So the data is at the front and center. What you do with it is there. So no longer front end, back end, middle, no, nothing. Everywhere it is there. It is the core of existence. The insights are going to make the difference for the brand. So we relied on emotion in the past. As brands evolve, you go towards from basic to value to experience to emotion, and ultimately people end up being in price when you become a commodity. But we are now reaching a commodity level already. Price is not in play for this. It has to reverse the cycle and go back to value and emotion and merge the two.